All right, today I'm gonna be doing something totally different with these baby back ribs. I'm going to be, one, cooking them on my Monument Grill's gas grill, and two, I'm gonna be cooking them on a rotisserie. So let's get to it, and you're not gonna wanna miss this. So the inspiration of this recipe is I have a bunch of old cookbooks. I have one called Betty Crocker's Outdoor Cooking. It's got a lot of interesting recipes, and not sure if one of the recipes I've done on this channel is from that cookbook. I've done a couple. There was a marinated chuck roast that was absolutely delicious, and then there was a huge burger that I also did from a recipe book from 1967, which I think this cookbook is from 67, so it might have been out of there, but they had a recipe for some rotisserie baby back ribs. Made me interested in seeing if I can cook these up on my gas grill rotisserie. That's what we're gonna be doing today. Now this recipe calls for a marinade, and to marinate these for 8 hours. I'm gonna marinate these overnight, and we gotta make the marinade. So let me go ahead and show you how that's done. All right, so the recipe from the cookbook is super simple. I'm going to kind of follow it, but I'm gonna add a lot more stuff because it's too basic for me. Basically, the recipe calls for soy sauce, sherry or pineapple juice, honey, and some crushed garlic, and that is it. Which, good base for a marinade, but I think you can add some better flavor in there. So we are gonna go in with the soy sauce. They call for about a half a cup, and right about there. Looks like a half a cup, might be a little over. That is fine. Then I forgot to get pineapple juice, which I think would be a great option for this, but I did have a little sherry, so I'm gonna put a little bit of that in, about a quarter cup. Now to that, I'm also going to add in some rice wine vinegar, not part of the 1967 recipe, but it's gonna add great flavor, as well as some sesame oil, probably a teaspoon of sesame oil. So this is obviously gonna have a little Asian inspired flavor to it, but when you start using soy sauce, you can't really get away from that. So we're gonna lean into it. Now, instead of the crushed garlic, I'm just gonna add some garlic powder. Of course, some black pepper. Then back to the Asian, we're gonna add some ground ginger. And I usually like to add some lemon to my marinade, so juice of 1 lemon in here. Pulled the seeds. And I was thinking about adding a little salt in here, but with all that soy sauce, I think we are good with the salt. This is just regular soy sauce, not the low sodium, so it is super salty. Now, I would use honey in this, but I have a toddler under 1 year old, and supposedly they can't have honey, so she loves ribs and she's gonna have these, so I'm not gonna add any honey to this marinade, but I will add a little bit of molasses, bring in that barbecue flavor. Oh, a little extra molasses there. All right, then we give this a nice mix, and you could definitely use crushed garlic. I didn't feel like getting fresh garlic in here right now. Garlic powder works pretty good for me. All right, there we go. This smells really good, very interesting. It's got a little Asian in there with the soy sauce and sesame oil, but the lemon and the molasses I can even smell. This is gonna be pretty good marinade. I usually don't marinate ribs, so I'm pretty interested to see how these come out, especially tenderness, see if they become a little more tender, even though when you smoke ribs, they're already pretty much fall off the bone, but with the rotisserie, I think we're gonna need a marinade to get them a little more tender, because the cook time's probably gonna be around 2 hours or so, which isn't really enough time to get those ribs to be fall off the bone tender. So this marinade's really gonna lend itself to tenderizing that meat, especially with the acid we added and the soy sauce. But that's our marinade. I'm gonna go ahead and throw my ribs in a vacuum sealed bag, put the marinade in here and vacuum seal them. You can just use a regular plastic bag, not a plastic bag, but a Ziploc bag. You could also get a shallow dish and make sure your bones are facing up, and then marinate and let that meat kind of sit in that marinade. You might have to flip them over or so, but I wouldn't really worry about that bone side too much. Make sure just that meat is really sitting in the marinade. That would work fine as well. Now the recipe says 8 hours. I'm gonna do this overnight, so it's gonna have plenty of time to marinate. The other thing is, if you watch my channel, you know I love to leave the membrane on the ribs. That is super important when I cook ribs. I think it's great because it holds in that fat layer, keeps them nice and juicy, and when cooked properly, that membrane is edible. It's actually nice, gets nice and crispy, so it's not a problem. If you don't cook them right, then yeah, the membrane can be chewy, but cooking them properly, leave that membrane on, save you some time. But since we're not doing a traditional cook on this and we're marinating, I'm gonna pull that membrane off so the marinade can penetrate both sides nicely. And when we're cooking it, that membrane is not really going to be able to cook through properly with this method. So if you're gonna follow this recipe, pull the membrane off. But I'm gonna go ahead, get this marinade in the ribs, vacuum seal it, marinate it overnight, and then I will see you tomorrow to get these ribs ready to cook on the rotisserie on my Monument Grill's propane grill. But with the magic of a video, we can jump right ahead. So let's go ahead, get these ribs on the rotisserie and ready to cook. All right, so after letting these ribs marinate overnight, see I vacuum sealed them nice. These are ready to cook. I marinated them for about 16 hours, but like I said, the recipe said 8. 16 is not gonna hurt. These should be really nice. So let's go ahead, open this up. We'll get our ribs out and we will get it on our rotisserie kit. And if you have Monument Grills, you can buy this rotisserie kit for your grill. It is an awesome feature to have. You can do awesome recipes. I love doing whole chicken on my rotisserie. I have a video of that. I'll make sure to leave a link at the end of this video so you can watch it. It is a fantastic recipe and the chicken comes out amazing. But this rotisserie is great. Recently did chicken shawarma thing where you have all the chicken thighs stacked up and you do the rotisserie. I'm gonna make a video on that, but it came out delicious. So go ahead and open these up. We'll get it on the rotisserie. Save this marinade because we are going to use it to baste after while the ribs are cooking. Now that is in the recipe, but what I'm going to do is I'm gonna dump this in a pot and bring it to a boil just so it's cooked to temp because it is sitting in raw meat. Sure, it's not a big deal if you just baste it, but I'm gonna bring it up to temp, bring it to a boil because I actually wanna get it a little thicker, kind of make it a glaze with all that molasses in there. So let's go ahead, open this up and get it on the rotisserie. All right, this marinade smells amazing. I'm gonna grab the bag and kind of squeeze off a little bit of that marinade, but I don't wanna dry these off or anything. And again, we're saving this. I'm gonna turn it into a basting sauce for later, but these smell amazing. I'm excited to try some marinated ribs here. But here's the fun part. We're gonna have to get this on my rotisserie rod, and I might not need these, but I'm gonna put them on just in case they want to spin on this. If it gets tender enough, this will spin and the ribs are just going to stay steady. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this on here. Now basically the way you do this is you're just going to weave it between some of the bones, probably every other bone. Get that bone, one here, one here. You could try and do every bone, but I don't think that's necessary. Every other bone seems pretty good for this. It's gonna get a little tougher here at the thick end. I'm assuming back in 1967, they might have not had these meaty pork ribs because most of this meat was cut off for the loin. Try and do this without stabbing myself, and there we go. All right, so then I'm gonna run this in there. And I'm gonna keep these loose for now till I get it centered on the grill. Take my other one. I think we're right in a bone here, yeah, okay. Now that doesn't need to be in all the way, just enough to keep it from spinning. So I think that's pretty good like that. Recently I had a comment on one of my rotisserie videos that you can buy some counterweights for these, which would be a great idea for this because you can see it's off a little bit. I could try and re-skewer it. Maybe I will. So you can see here, I went a little far on this side, so this side's a little heavier. I'm just gonna try and get that centered a little bit better. Now that I think of it, it's probably a better idea to skewer it while looking at the bottom of the ribs. All right, there we go. Perfect, let's see, that's a little better. Ah, it's a little better. Not perfect, but it'll work. Let me just kind of get these stretched out like I want. And again, like I said, I'm gonna leave both these loose so I can move it back and forth on this rod on the grill and make sure we're perfectly centered. But these look pretty good. Just want to get this in the meat here. There we have it. Our nice rotisserie ribs with this beautiful marinade. All right, so this is going on the Monument Grill's propane grill. I'm gonna have all the burners set to low, and I've also got a smoke box from Monument Grills as well. I threw a bunch of little tiny wood chips in there, and we're gonna try and get a little bit of extra smoke flavor on this as well. So go out there, get this thing on the grill and start cooking. All right, so here we are at the Monument Grills. You can see got the smoke box with those wood chips in there. I've started. We'll go ahead and just close this. I'm gonna throw that to the back of the grill. That adds some good smoke flavor, as long as it doesn't get in the way of the ribs, but let's go ahead and get them and see. So you can see I got the rotisserie motor right there. Just get that in. Then you got a little collar over here to sit on. Let's see how they sit. Pretty centered to me. I'm just gonna keep them that way. So I'm just gonna tighten these locks up on these here and here. Then we'll go ahead and turn this on. See how this thing spins. Not bad. Smoke box is clear. This looks like it's going to be pretty good. So now the only other thing I'm going to do, because I don't want a lot of direct heat there, I'm just going to throw that pan under there like that, kind of give it some indirect heat, block that from there. And then at the end, I'll probably remove that, crank the heat up to get a little extra color on these things. But for now, I'm gonna get that marinade boiling, and we're probably gonna baste these every half an hour or so. And the recipe says 1.5 to 2 hours on this. We'll see how that goes, but I'll see you in about a half an hour to give these a baste. So let's close it up and let these cook. All right, so it's been a half an hour. I already made a few adjustments here. See, these ribs are cooking pretty quick. Kind of lost my smoke in there, so we might have to check that out. But you can see I have removed that pan that I placed there because with all 4 burners on low, the pan under there, I was still getting a grill temperature of around 400, which is just a little too hot for my liking on ribs. So I removed the pan and I put these 2 burners in the center on off, and I've left the 2 outer ones on low. The reason I didn't want to do that is because I didn't want each end of the ribs to start to cook quicker than the middle, but I think we'll be all right. So we're gonna go ahead and stop this. We'll do the bottom side first. So once that bottom side is even, go ahead and give it a stop. Now I've let this marinade boil for a little bit, still trying to reduce it. After I'm done basting it now, I'm gonna go ahead and put it back on, see if I can get a little thicker. But let's go ahead and just coat these ribs. Obviously a lot of this is just gonna drip off, but as it reduces, it'll get a little thicker. And if it's not as thick as I want, I'll add a little sugar, try and get a little thicker, maybe some more of that molasses. First coat there, then I'll go ahead and give them a baste on the top. All right, while I got it opened, I want to try and get this box lit back up so we can keep adding that smoky flavor. See, the wood just went out. Sometimes I use pellets. I want to try the wood chips today. I got my torch, so I'm just going to go ahead and light these up. And I'm going to do pretty much the whole thing here to hopefully keep some of it on fire. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now we got plenty of smoke. I'm going to throw this on the side over the burner, so hopefully that'll keep it hot enough to keep this smoldering. So I was at about 300 degrees when I came out here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn these up just a hair. Get this rotisserie going again, and we will close this up and let them cook. I'll see you in about another half an hour. All right, another half an hour for a total of 1 hour. We are at about 280, 290 for temp, so we're looking pretty good. See, the smoke box died out on me again, but let's look at these ribs. They actually look pretty good. So I think 1.5 to 2 hours might actually be a good time frame, but these are looking pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and give them a pause once we get about there. You see, we got good color, so I think the smoke has helped a little bit. I'm gonna get that lit back up again, but our sauces started to thicken up nicely, so this should work out pretty good. Get a nice coating on there. I gave it a taste test. This stuff is pretty salty, so definitely don't add any salt to the marinade mix. And I'm still gonna cook it a little longer, try and thicken it up even more. I think another 15, 20 minutes boiling this marinade, it'll be reduced perfectly. All right, got the smoke box lit back up. Turn the rotisserie back on. We'll close this up and let it smoke some more. All right, so we are 1 whole hour later. I did not baste anymore. I did just put a quick coat on here before I showed you, but these are finished. You can see that sauce charred up nicely. What I quickly did was just turn the burners up a little bit to caramelize that sauce on top. You can see how nice that looks, but let's go ahead and give that a stop. So this is about 2 to 2.5 hours. So I give them a probe, and these things are nice and tender. That's what you want. And I was temping them. They're only at, let's see if I can get a good spot. They're at 187. They were up to about 195. I've turned the grill off now and kind of let them just spin a little bit to stay in that warm oven or grill. So these are done. I'm going to pull them off, let them rest, and then we will do the hard task of cutting up these accordion style ribs. So I will see you inside to slice these up and give them a try. All right, so right on cue, as usual, battery on the camera died. But these ribs are actually delicious and fantastic. Like I was saying, you can see they are pull off the bone, but this is a totally different experience than a smoked rib for sure. Like I said, that fat hasn't rendered out like a normal rib does, but the fat is absolutely delicious. The meat has a nice bite to it. It's not chewy one bit, and the marinade and sauce on here is delicious. You can go a lot of different routes with this. This probably would be good with a barbecue sauce on there. Not sure what you do for a marinade, but I'm sure you can figure it out. But really, the options are endless with this rotisserie style rib. And if you have a rotisserie, especially one on a charcoal grill, that would probably come out even better. Give this a try, because like I said, totally different experience, but it's still tender. It's not chewy or anything. It's such a crazy texture because it still has all that chew. It's not like a smoked rib where it's just so tender, but at the same time, it is still tender and it comes right off the bone. I mean, there you go, check that out. You can see clean off the bone there. That's nuts. All I can say, this is super surprising, but delicious and worth a try. And like I said, if you have a charcoal grill, definitely give it a shot with a rotisserie on a charcoal grill. I'm gonna be tweaking this recipe a little bit in the future. I'm definitely gonna be doing this again, but I wanna try some different flavor combinations. So this is a straight up Asian style rib with that soy sauce. Got a lot of that salt flavor from the soy sauce. It's really good. I think the pineapple juice instead of the sherry would be a lot better, but this still is a very good rib. And I'm super impressed with this. Monument Grills was flawless. Not much smoky flavor there, but I'm not surprised because of this marinade and sauce we put on it. It's just an extreme flavor. It's going to kind of kill out any smoke flavor that there is. But that rotisserie worked great. Want to thank the Betty Crocker Outdoor Cookbook for inspiring me for this recipe all the way from back in 1967. But if you're looking for something different, you got a rotisserie, you got a gas grill, it's possible to make some delicious ribs. You don't have to smoke them on the pellet grill. I'm not going to say one is better than the other because these are totally different. If you're someone who likes a little chew on your rib, these are for you, because it's got that chew, but it's still fall off the bone, which is crazy. And you can see the fat didn't render, but it's that good fat. You know, when you get a nice good steak, the fat is cooked. Obviously a steak, you're not gonna render it down completely because of how fast you cook it, but it's just got that great mouthfeel. That's exactly what this is here. All in all, I will be doing this again, super impressed, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe right over here. Now I will put the rotisserie chicken video over here along with another Monument Grill recipe right over here. Crying Tiger steak, that was another Asian style dish on the Monument Grill that was delicious, but most importantly, get out there and smoke or grill something good.